presentation. Would everyone on the call like to introduce themselves? From the medical school, we have Dr. Mohanna. If you'd like to give a wave, we also have John Cookson, also Lisa Jones, and these are all our doctors from the medical school. We also have Anand Patil, who's my colleague from the international office looking after the India region. I'm trying not to miss anyone else out. We've got Jack, who's from our communications team. And we're really happy to be introducing our medical school to you today. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Anand now.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are in the world. My name is Anand Patil. I'm the regional manager at the international recruitment team here at the University of Worcester. Along with me, obviously, we have some representatives from around the world. I have Amar from India, who runs the Meridean Overseas Education Consultancy. We are live streaming on YouTube today in India, so I will just quickly ask Amar to introduce so we can go live, and then we will start with the presentation. And also, Elizabeth, if you would like to introduce your representative as well, then yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, welcome to this live session. So we are having this medical information from Worcester University. So whoever is wishing to study medical related courses in UK, they have a golden opportunity to get the total information about medical courses, especially from Professor John Cookson and Professor Mohanna. And after this session, you are open for Q&A, so you can directly ask us any questions you have. Thank you. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Perfect, thank you, Amar. We also have Jeff on the call from Sea Education in Malaysia and Vietnam. So welcome, Jeff, and welcome everybody who's joined the call today. Now, I believe Anand is going to give a brief introduction to those of you who don't know anything about living and studying in Worcester.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. I will just quickly share my screen and start the presentation. Just give me a quick thumbs up if you can see the screen. Great. So welcome, everyone. As you can see, this is the beautiful picture from Worcester, which is the cathedral by the river, lots of swans. So what we are going to learn today about the University of Worcester is location, city, and how well connected it is with the rest of the country. Why you should study at the University of Worcester, what makes our university special. And then we'll talk about the campus, the schools, entry requirements, and fees and scholarship. Now, as you can see from the map, we are in the heart of England, which is the W Worcester with the red highlight, the yellow highlight. It's an excellent connection with other cities from like Birmingham, Bristol, 2 hours from London. In 45 minutes, you can be in the second biggest city in the UK. In 10-15 minutes, you can be in one of the most beautiful countrysides in the country as well. It's convenient to travel by road, by rail. It's connected very well to London by rail as well. There's a Birmingham International Airport, so again, very well connected by air. So you can fly into Birmingham International Airport, and in 45 minutes, you could be in the campus. We do offer airport pickups as well as part of our welcome service. And it's again very close to some of the interesting places like Stratford-upon-Avon, Cheltenham, Oxford, Malvern Hills, and other places of interest. So in a nutshell, it's a beautiful historic city right in the heart of England, very well connected by air, by road, by rail, and some beautiful places around to see. Now, why Worcester? As you can see from the pictures, they speak for themselves. It's a historic city. You will find this beautiful cathedral by the river, and on a nice sunny day, you can have a wonderful walk around the river as well. everything is hidden within the walking distance. So you don't spend much time in traveling, commuting by train or by bus. What makes it special? So we have a very good in terms of average of how many students are studying in the classroom compared to big universities. So we don't have massive lecture halls, so 20 students per classroom. So you will be known by your name, not as a number in the classroom. We are number one in the quality of education, gender equality. We offer excellent support throughout your journey as students within the classroom, but also outside the classroom. There's an excellent proportion of practice and theory for all the courses that you will study, but also within the medical school. And 98% of our graduates have gone into work or further education within 6 months of graduation. These are different campuses spread across the city. So the main campus, which is called the St. John's campus, is our main campus. If you walk from St. John's campus, you will come to the University Arena, the garage, which is our sports facility. If you would cross the bridge, the Sabrina Bridge, you will come to Hive, which is our library. It's the first public and the university joint library in the UK. And very next to the library is our business school. The medical school is going to be between the St. John's campus and the University Arena and the garage. So again, if you would be staying in the accommodation at our St. John's campus, it would be less than 10 minutes walk down to the medical school. This is the aerial view of the city and the campuses. So you can see the St. John's campus, the Sabrina Bridge and the river, the race course on your left side. And if you walk by the race course, you will come to the Hive and the city campus. And the building with a big curve is the Worcester Arena. And just imagine the medical school is being built between the St. John's campus and the arena. So that's a beautiful aerial view of the city and the campuses. Now, the university has different schools within its structure. So we have business school, we have School of Education, School of Science and Environment, Psychology, Humanities, School of Arts, Sports and Exercise Science, School of Allied Health and Community, and then we have the Nursing and Midwifery School. Obviously, medical school will be part of it as well. So we will get to know more about the medical school. So now I will pass it on to John Cookson, who will tell you more about the medical school.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I am John Cookson. I'm the Development Dean for the medical school. I'm a chest physician by background, but I spent quite a lot of time setting up medical schools both in this country and abroad. So if I could have the first slide. And the next slide. This rather repeats what you've seen already, but to show that we're in the middle of England. And the next slide. And here are some more pictures, but you'll see the bottom left is slightly different to the one you saw before because it's raining, as it sometimes does in England, as you're probably aware. You don't get all that greenery without some rain. And the next slide. And as you've heard, if you go to the west from Worcester, you come to a line of Malvern Hills associated with a famous English composer, Edward Elgar. If, on the other hand, you go east, you come to Stratford-on-Avon, associated with Shakespeare. And the next slide. And there's quite a lot of history in medicine in Worcester. Worcester was the place where the Provincial Medical and Surgical Association was first set up, which became the British Medical Association, publishing the journal, the British Medical Journal, which is internationally renowned. So it all started in this building in Worcester. And the next slide. Now, these two pictures on the left you'll have seen, but the picture on the right you haven't seen, and neither have I, because it's a medical school building and hasn't been built yet. In fact, it's being built at the moment as I speak. So that's what it'll look like. So it is actually going to happen. And the next slide. So this is the curriculum. Now, you may be a bit surprised that it looks like a plant in a pot, doesn't it? But it's actually a curriculum. And that's because there are two components to this. One is the seed and the other is the soil. The seed is the medical school in the university, and the soil is the health service that surrounds it. Both are necessary and both are vital for student engagement. In fact, 2/3 of this course is not in the university, it's in the NHS, it's in the soil. But both of these are needed, the seed is needed and the soil is needed. And the collaboration between the two is absolutely vital. And you'll find that time and time again. And the next slide. So the course is problem-based learning. You may or may not know something about that, but an essential component is that the studying is done in small groups of about 8 people, whom you get to know very well. And to help you along, there's a facilitator, who's the guy on the right with grey hair like mine. And his job is not to teach you, but to ensure that you learn. They're quite separate things. Nice to know. So the next slide shows you there's more to it than the small group. Here's students learning to talk to patients and to examine patients. The patients here are probably what we call simulated patients. They're real people, but they're not actually ill. So it's practicing on the normal before you get to see the abnormal. And the next slide. Well, you'll be familiar with this. There's a lot of this. All the lectures are delivered, most of the lectures are delivered like this, online as podcasts or video casts. And there's a lot of learning. There's no doubt about it. Medicine is a tough profession to enter. But you know that already if you've done any work on it. And the next slide. But there's lots of help to understand what's going on. And here are some images of various kinds. Learning medicine is all about images, about learning what it looks like inside, what's going on in the patient's body, including their mind, which is equally important, and sometimes including their family and surroundings as well. So lots of illustrations of what's going on. And the next slide. And there's lots of hands-on stuff, literally hands-on stuff on the left. Somebody bouncing up and down on somebody's chest. It's a model, I'm glad to say. It's not actually for real. You'll be reassured. And the thing on the right looks more real because this guy is strapped up to an ECG machine. All this sort of stuff takes place in the first year of the course. So plenty of hands-on experience. And the next slide. But this is what it's really like. This is actually the key bit of it. I won't say forget the rest, but remember this bit. Students meeting patients in a clinical situation is at the core of the curriculum. The students, the patients are your best teachers. There's a lot of this, both in hospital and in primary care, a mixture of the two. This is what makes it real. This is where you learn to put into practice all the stuff that you've been doing on the campus. And the next slide. So this is the last slide. And this is the teachers, and they may look a rather strange group of teachers. There are no people wearing gowns and mortarboards standing in front of a blackboard. They are doctors, they are researchers, they are parents, they are children, patients, they are staff in other disciplines, nursing and other disciplines, and they are patients themselves. As I stressed already, the patients are perhaps the most important part of this whole thing. But the others, the teachers, give guidance. But there's lots of other people that you will learn from. So that's me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, John. I think that means it's over to me now. Good morning, everybody. It's really very nice to be with you. My name's Mohanna. I'm Professor of Medical Education, and I'm a consultant in family medicine. which in the UK is known as general practitioner. And I want to talk to you about 5 minutes or so, and I'm just going to tell you a story, and the story is called The Strawberry Plant. And through this story, I hope to just describe to you some of the many and varied people that you'll come across, as John says, as teaching faculty, but also the kind of relationships that we hope you will form with patients, even as you are a medical student. So the story starts 17 years ago. A 31-year-old mother of 2 complains of a severe headache, and her husband calls the GP. GP does an emergency home visit, suspects a subarachnoid hemorrhage, and arranges for the patient to be admitted. It turns out she has a thromboembolic stroke due to being on the oral contraceptive pill. So she has a 7-month stay in hospital. First of all, she has surgery. The neurosurgeons put in a ventriculoperitoneal shunt for raised intracranial pressure. An anaesthetist maintains her safety while she's on intensive care. But she wakes up with tetraplegia. And for the next 7 months, the physiotherapists, the occupational therapists, and the highly skilled intensive care nursing staff maintain her safety and try to get her back to some form of functioning. She eventually is discharged home to the care of her parents because her marriage by now has broken down. She's looked after by a rehabilitation consultant who manages and oversees the process of splints for her paralytic limbs, a hoist to get her in and out of bed into her wheelchair, and organises for things like 24-hour care to come into the home. Same GP who sent her into hospital visits 6 weekly to replace her suprapubic indwelling urinary catheter. And as you can imagine, every 6 weeks for 17 years, they build up quite a relationship. As the years go by, the GP also looks after the patient's parents. And in due course, the mother dies of complications of diabetes and the father becomes very depressed. The family fall out, there's an inheritance dispute, and the brothers of our patient require the home to be sold so they can inherit their money. Social services step in and the GP coordinates her move to a purpose-built flat with wheelchair access, a wet room that she can cycle into in her bike. And she moves out to live on her own. First person to visit her is the GP with a strawberry plant as a housewarming gift. And that housewarming gift has continued to flourish and give strawberries every summer. And when Wimbledon tennis starts in the UK, everybody in England starts eating strawberries. Not that they're not eating them already, imported from Spain or somewhere, but British strawberries. And every year the GP and her patient have a couple of strawberries together when they go to change the urinary catheter. That's a fairly typical patient journey, patient story. I could tell you also about the grown-up daughters of our patient who now came to see the GP, themselves requesting healthcare and had to be tested for the JAK2 mutant gene for thrombocythemia, for which one of them was positive. So really, I suppose I'm telling the story that describes the interconnectedness of GPs in the UK with their family, how they look after more than one member of a family, how that ongoing history lasts over time. And that's the sort of setting that you will be welcomed into as a medical student at Worcester, because our teachers, our teaching faculty are dispersed in the community. And we'll be using that expertise wherever we find it, including from the patients, to help you be the best doctors that you can be. Thanks very much. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Oh, thanks so much. That's actually a really moving story. Does anybody have any questions at all? Thank you so much, John and Anand and Kay, for introducing our medical school. And we'd love to hear any questions that you might have.
In the meantime, somebody prepares a question or asks a question. Would you like to just quickly cover the entry requirements, Elizabeth? And the fees?
Yeah, sure.
Of course.
Can you allow me to share my screen? Okay, everybody, am I screen sharing okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So the entry requirements are first or 2-1 undergraduate degree, plus GAMSAT, UCAT or MCAT, plus 2 science subjects of GCSE, plus a series of interviews. Are there any questions about that?
Yes, so Henrik, thanks for your question. Does the 2-2 include Masters in Engineering? Is that an integrated undergraduate Masters? Yes. Yes, it does count, because we will take a first or a 2-1 in any subject. If you get a 2-2, you need to top it up with a Master's or a PhD. But if you have done an integrated undergraduate Master's, we consider that equivalent entry criteria. So yes, you'd be welcome to apply. You're welcome.
Yeah. Are there any other questions at all? So basically, the requisite performance in a series of structured interviews. I don't know if perhaps Kay or John will want to add anything to this, but basically you take part in a series of panel interviews, and the questions that we would ask, what we'd require you to do would be more sort of problem-based learning. We would be asking you to show, present you with a series of challenges and to see how you would respond to those challenges. We're not looking for the sort of perfect answer, but what we are looking at is that you approach it with sympathy, with compassion, with logic and reason. Kay and John may well want to add something about that, but the interviews are, we're not looking for perfection, we're looking for potential at the interviews.
So I'm just busy typing. We've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
It is a graduate entry course. You can't come straight from school. So it's a graduate entry course, and the applications are actually open now for international students. You have to apply through UCAS, and the normal closing date for medicine is October 2021. We're extending that to January 2022. You have to do as well as you can on the GAMSAT or the UCAT because it's competitive. But we don't set a score at this stage. We will wait to see what people bring. The GAMSAT will probably be a cutoff of a threshold of around about 50 because we have a GMC contingent partner called Swansea University. All new schools are required to buddy up with an experienced school to make sure students are well catered for. And they have a threshold cutoff on the GAMSAT of 50, so we're likely to follow suit.
The other entry requirement to probably pay attention to is the IELTS score if you're from a non-English speaking country. So it's IELTS of at least 7, with at least 7 in speaking and 6.5 in all other components. That's another question.
Yes, you will have the privilege of being the very first group of students. And we're so excited to get to meet you all because for us, you will be our first. We're also very lucky to have Professor Lisa on the call here. I just wonder, Lisa, whether that might be a moment to say something about student support. Professor Jones is very experienced, worked in other medical schools, and has a close understanding of the importance of student welfare.
Yes, thanks, Kay. So all students who come to the medical school will have what's called a personal academic tutor. And that person will be a doctor, so a medical doctor, who will be there to support your learning and also to support your welfare. And we have timetabled meetings for you to get together with that person, just to make sure everything's okay and see if you need help with anything. And you'll also all have something called a university academic tutor, which is somebody within the university who won't necessarily be a medical doctor, but is somebody who'll know lots and lots about how the university works so that if you want advice about, I don't know, an extension on some coursework, you can go to see that person who'll know exactly how to help you submit the paperwork that you need to be able to get that. So we'll have lots and lots of support in place. We're also, we'll have somebody called the Student Support and Guidance Lead. And that person will be a medical doctor and will be somebody who oversees the welfare of all the students in the medical school. So if you have a serious concern, your personal academic tutor might suggest that you go to see the Student Support and Guidance Lead. So what we've put in place is lots of different layers to make sure that you're supported and helped the whole way through.
Perhaps I could just go back and answer the question about being a new school. It's great fun setting up a new school. I've done it several times. And the first group of students are really quite fun because they've often come to a new school because they wanted to be part of something new. And certainly they've been very helpful in shaping the curriculum. I've been very grateful to groups of students over the years who really helped me put a curriculum together that worked for them.
We've got a question from Jeff. Is there, oh, sorry, yep, Kay's already answered, but just for everyone else on the call, is the intention to open up an entry route at undergrad level? And Kay has said, no, we're going to stay a graduate entry medicine school like in the US. I wondered if I think there was a question about timelines earlier. I wondered if it might be worth mentioning about the timeline around the UCAT, the GAMSAT and the MCAT. So for all three of those exams, we're probably expecting most people to go for the UCAT exam. The UCAT exam is already open for registration. I believe you can actually already book an exam since yesterday. And the registration, the exams will close in September 21 for September 22 entry. So if you are interested in September 2022 entry, please do book your UCAT or GAMSAT or MCAT exam now. We've got another question. Will international students who are already enrolled at the University of Worcester be eligible for a fee reduction? That's a very good question. I think that's probably one we're going to have to look into in terms of if there was an alumni discount, if the standard discount did apply. Not sure if anyone else on the call knows. I think that's probably a question we'll go back to our finance team.
It's going to be difficult. Although the fee does seem high, it's actually the economic fee. It doesn't actually cost that much to have a medical course. So I think any reduction will be difficult.
In terms of payment terms, though, there's another question here about fee structure and payment terms. The university does allow payment in instalments. You'll certainly only be expected to pay year on year, and within the year there are instalment possibilities. We recognise that it's a lot of money. And as John just said, it's the cost of buying out the time of the people who work in the NHS, because we very particularly wanted to have clinical staff as teachers and teaching in the clinical setting, and not just us. It wasn't just us that wanted that. The GMC rate that very highly. In order to ensure that you have high quality teachers, we have to release them from the clinical setting, which means somebody's got to see the patients. So the university has to pay for that. Yeah.
Yep, so the fees for the course, in case I'm not sure we mentioned, they are £41,000 per year. That's for both international and EU students. And there may be some additional costs for travelling to placements in the community. Yeah, so obviously it's not a cheap course for the students, but again, then you do get to have careers such as Kay and Lisa and John, and hopefully we'll be able to earn back some of that money and get great job satisfaction in the future.
even if not all our patients do as well as others.
Oh, well, at least he's been COVID secure and wearing the mask, which is very important.
Yes, that was £41,000 a year. It bears repeating because we do want everyone to have clarity. The course is a long course each year, so it's full time for 44 weeks. And that's another reason why it's expensive. So I think that needs to be taken into account as well. You will be studying on average 44 weeks of the year. So it also doesn't allow you much opportunity to have a part-time job. You are on some visas allowed to work a certain number of hours, but that would be very difficult in medicine. I think some of our likely first cohort students will be people who've been working for a while since their first degree and have got some savings.
Okay, question from Nida, who's our current student at the University of Worcester. Do we have to provide all the documents like UCAT and IELTS before January? She's booked her UCAT test for August. Can she give her IELTS score after January? In terms of UCAT, they will send us your test results, so that's fine. In terms of IELTS, I mean, IELTS is very often a pending condition on any offer that we give.
Yeah, so January would be fine for the IELTS, because what happens is effectively you're creating a portfolio for your application, which includes all these different elements like your first degree and so on. And then when we get to start interviewing people, we probably won't start interviewing before January. So at that point, we'll be looking to make sure that everything is collated, that you've got the requirement, the English level and so on. There's another element which we haven't spoken of much today, but if you see on the website something called CASPER, which is a situational judgment test, which we'll be using for people who we have longlisted. So once we get your application through UCAS with your aptitude score, then we'll be calling you to interviews plus CASPER. And at that point, that would be the time to make sure you've got your IELTS pinned down as well.
Can I apply for this course, question from Henrik, in September 21 while I'm studying my final year, or do I need a degree ready before applying?
We know you're going to do great, Henrik, when it comes to your MECH degree. You can apply in advance. Think of it like a school leaver who doesn't yet have their A-levels in hand. They still apply to university, and then it's contingent upon you getting that degree. So yes, you can. Well, that's the clever bit. We tell UCAT, and they know that we're part of their consortium. So if any of we get the list of scores sent straight to us.
You've got some really good questions here.
It would actually help us if I was to ask a question of you. We're interested in where students will live when they come to study with us. Has anybody started thinking about accommodation? Maybe family or friends or university accommodation? So that might be no, you haven't started thinking about it yet. Oh, fantastic. Well, you should come and say hello if you're living in Worcester.
Anand, are there any, and Amar, are there any questions from the YouTube live stream at all?
Amar, you're on mute.
Yes, some of the students are asking for the recognition of the course in India. Like when they come back to India, do they have to give any additional exams to be a registered medical professional, or there's no exam requirement from Indian Medical Counseling? Like, is it already recognized from Indian Medical Council or any other medical councils?
Shall I take that, John?
Yes, I think you're more in touch.
So, as you know, when the Indian Medical Council, let's just say, dissolved and was reformed, a lot of the existing recognitions for international medical schools were also dissolved. So actually the new council doesn't recognise any medical school in advance or any country in advance, but you have to apply to take the eligibility and entrance test, the national test in India, before you leave your country to come anywhere. If you pass that NEET, when you go back, your degree will be recognised. So it's an eligibility and entrance test that's taken at the time of leaving the country that you'd need to look into in India. Then you come and study and you get a GMC, of course, recognised degree. All medical schools in the UK are approved and accredited by the General Medical Council. So our degree will be just like any other British degree. And with that NEET, you can then apply for registration in India. That's our understanding. Now, we're not experts, of course, in the Indian context or any other. For example, in Canada, it's the same. You're treated like an IMG when you go back to Canada as a Canadian citizen. So we're not experts in that, but that's our understanding at the moment. And you really you need to check at your end.
I think it's most important that people must make their own inquiries. We can't give advice about something that we're not actually responsible for.
Amar, does that help the person who's posted?
Yeah, they are only wondering about like some of the UK universities is saying that when they come back to India after passing from those universities, they do not need to give any Indian exam, but that is no clarity on this course yet, whether they have to, when they come back, they have to pay for an exam or not.
I think our best advice would be to check with the new council before you leave, before you make these plans, because it's our understanding that some of those links, they were historical, that then, in fact, it says on the new website that no prior recognition is given to foreign medical degrees. So we really would strongly recommend that you check that out.
Right.
And Worcester wouldn't be any different. The system in the UK is that all medical schools are state schools. There are no private medical schools. Well, there's just one new one now, but all the degrees are regulated by the General Medical Council, so they're all equivalent in that sense.
Right.
You will, of course, when you first graduate, be eligible for the foundation program, which is, it's like the old house officer grade or intern grade, and you'll be eligible to apply to that. So you'll have 2 years of work before you change status.
That should help. The rest are all other questions regarding red list and the visa status. So that I'll ask Anand again.
We've got a question about agents. Agents are phenomenally important and useful at giving you background information and support, but actually you can do it by yourself. You can apply to UCAS. The beauty of an agent, of course, is that they can prevent a lot of wasted time guiding you in the right way, but you already applied to human biology, so you know the process, and you can go through UCAS yourself.
Yeah, and what's more, Nida, you are actually a current University of Worcester student, so I would say, any advice you need from us or our visa support team or anything like that, it's very easy to access. So.
Yeah, I think the only question is if you are not in the UK and you're in India or anywhere else in the world, we do advise applying through our authorized consultants, and this is purely because not just the application process, but the process that is after your application when it comes to your visa application process and everything. So we do have our authorized consultants around the world who do help us with the recruitment. But this course is now available to apply on UCAS, which again can be done by yourself as well.
Casper test, that's a really big question. Does it sound like a cop-out if I say it's scored by the North American company that set it up with all their expertise and history? It's scored on a curve, and there are several elements that they take into account. And then they just send us the ranking of students. So it's an online, it's a 1 hour paper. It's quick, rapid fire, high pressure, I have to tell you. And it's a series of little vignettes, some by video, some that you read, that say, if this thing happened, what would you do? You know, say you wanted to return that sweater that you had for Christmas, and you want to go back to the shop and get a return. And the shop said that you couldn't have an exchange because you didn't have the receipt. How would you go forward? It's scenario based, and then they write the scenarios to test a whole different type of qualities like integrity and ethical thinking, decision making, and then they just tell us the numbers.
Are there any other questions from anyone? Don't be shy. Should we put our contact information in the chat box? And then if anyone thinks of any questions after the talk, feel free to get in touch with us.
In the meantime, I know that there doesn't seem to be a very big audience, though thank you for everybody who has joined us today. I've just quickly checked, and we have had an average of about 80 viewers streaming on YouTube from India and from the neighboring countries. So again, there's been a good presence of enthusiasts who are keen to know more about the medical school.
I think one of the things that this global pandemic has taught us is how much more connected we are than we realize. It's lovely to think of you watching us on the internet. We will be teaching in person, that's the plan, but we will be using some of this experience about the online world that we've gathered this year to augment the teaching as well. So those of you that are internet savvy, not like us old fogies, will be able to access what we call asynchronous learning. So a lot of it will be available to you at a time and a place of your choosing via podcasts or accessing resources that we flag up, as well as the clinical and the face-to-face teaching that we've been discussing. So hopefully people will find that there's something that suits their type of learning style through the range of things that we can offer. Except for TikTok. We're not going to make any TikTok videos. Just putting that out there. Or perhaps we will.
You may have to come up with some trend, including the skeleton.
I was thinking skeleton dancing or something.
Yeah. Well, as our very valued and respected first cohort of students, maybe we'll get you guys to make the TikToks for the new generation to apply through or to observe.
Great. Are there any questions at all? If not, I guess we might call it a day. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching our presentation. It was great to meet you virtually.
Oh, one last question.
Of course.
I'm looking forward to meeting you, Henrik. I got a good feeling about your questions. Yeah, this is a difficult question, really, and we don't have a very good answer. We're as keen as you are to know about home students applying. It's out of our hands. It's a government decision that the position's not open at the moment to home students. As soon as we do know, the first place it'll go is up on the website. I don't think we can say any more than that, John, really. You're on mute, John.
We're in the hands of the government.
Yeah. It's not the GMC approval that's the issue, really. We're kind of assuming that we will get GMC approval, and that's why we're opening up to international students. The second issue is the government funding. So in the UK, as I said, all medical education is socialised except for one medical school. And you're not allowed to charge British students any more than that cap, the 90,250, and it's just not sufficient to fund the course. So unless we can source the difference between 9,250 and the 41 that it actually costs, that we've calculated that it costs, we can't afford to open to home students. Most medical schools do take a few international students, maybe 7% of their intake, but they are all funded by the government for all the home students. And that's what we're hoping for and lobbying for. But I don't know how much you know about British politics, but they've kind of had their eye on other things this last year or so with Brexit and the pandemic. And now we have a brand new 24 hours in health secretary. So things change fast in politics. We're hoping actually the new Secretary for Health is a local Worcester MP. So we're hoping that we might have some influence, although realistically we suspect not, but we're kind of hoping. Not at all. Always happy to chat.
I think Nida had a question as well, actually. Oh, she said she didn't know anything about UCAS, made a UCAS account, but for 2021 entry. The course is open on UCAS. I can try and find the link and pop it in the chat box, Nida. Let me just do that now.
But you're right, it's 2022 entry, because you've actually missed the deadline. Even if we were open, you've missed the deadline for 21 entry anyway, because it would have been last October. We don't have any scholarships at the moment. We're trying very hard to find some, because if we could get scholarships, we would be allowed to have home students as well. There are small bursaries that you can apply for things like moving to the UK, coming for the interviews, but nothing like enough to cover the course fees, I'm afraid.
You're welcome. So for everybody as well, that's the link to our course if you are interested and would like to apply.
No, we don't have, I know some medicals ask you for a minimum number of hours of work experience. We are very keen not to put any barriers in the way of people applying. And one of the problems with work experience is it's people with contacts who can get them. So we're more interested in the kind of person you are, the kind of qualities you have, the competences you can develop and demonstrate, rather than how many hours of work experience you did in order to achieve that. So no, we don't have a requirement for work experience. We're also not taking personal statements or references into account, probably. I know that in UCAS, everybody has to put in a personal statement. If it came down to the wire and we really weren't sure about a student, we might look at them, but it's not an essential criterion that we're going to look at. For the same reason, to be frank, some people have access to opportunities for volunteering and for experience that not everybody has access to. So we're trying to even out the playing field. It does help to do work experience because it helps you develop those competencies, but it's not a requirement in terms of hours. And if you were going to spend your time on work experience, we really would recommend that it's actual work experience rather than observing. So we would be more interested in somebody who, for example, volunteered in a homeless shelter than somebody who went into a healthcare setting as an observer. I hope that helps.
Any more questions at all, or was that the last one? Any more questions from Amar, Anand?
No, I think that's everything for now. And we've probably gone above our time. So,
Wow.
But I think there have been some interesting questions, and I think there's a lot of information out there now, so which would be helpful.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming to the webinar. We are really glad that you found it informative and helpful. If you do have any questions after the webinar, I've popped mine and Anand's email into the chat box, and we're more than welcome to help answer the questions.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Are we going to debrief?
We've still got Nida on the chat.
I think we're probably better off to do it outside of this, aren't we? So I think we might still be live on YouTube as well.